And we're back. Hello, everybody. This is the Enlightened Misanthrope, and this is episode 4. We're really chugging along now. Twitter and my Facebook is semi up. I mean, it's there, but it's not exactly um, maybe done to the quality that I would like, I guess. It's probably my own doing. I'm not great with uh, Facebook exactly, or you know, making pages. I've never really been good at that. Like I remember when everybody started with MySpace, and they say that's basically coding, and everybody was doing that, and my MySpace page was terrible because I didn't understand any of that shit. You go to some pages, especially girls, it was like, wow, this is cool. I never was one of those people, but slowly but surely, I'm gonna get that going, and my Twitter is going on, and we are officially on iTunes, which is very impressive. I'm surprised we got that far, um, but I'm very glad, and I'm thankful to the people who have been helping me do this, and I'm really appreciative for that. So, um, other than that, I don't think there's anything else that I need to let you guys know about. I think I'm gonna start the podcast with my information, just in case, because it seems like my listening isn't very long lived. So if you are listening and you listen for any amount of time past this, and you'd like to leave me a comment or I don't know, suggestions or whatever. And I've said this in other podcasts, don't be a dick. I don't care what your, like, if your opinion is I'm an asshole or I'm stupid or some other derogatory thing that you just feel the need to spread negativity across the internet waves because I can't physically reach out and, you know, exact revenge in some way. Um, I would suggest not doing that because I don't care about that. But if you're like, hey man, your podcast is okay, or you could do this better, or whatever, I'm open to suggestions to improve this experience for everybody, me included, because the better I can get at it, as far as you guys are concerned, the better it is for me. At least the way I look at it. So it's at Misanthropic89 on Twitter. It's the Enlightened Misanthrope on Facebook. The Enlightened Misanthrope on Instagram, and you can find I have a Gmail account. I also have a Hotmail account. Um, so you can email if you go to Instagram, you can find my Gmail. You can email me there. I don't care either way. If you listen to past episodes and you've heard my Hotmail one, you can just use that. But either way, you can use the Gmail if that's what you prefer. Either or doesn't matter to me. But like I said, if you have something to say that's worth saying, I would definitely be interested in hearing that. And you know, if you have suggestions or comments that aren't just, like I said, derogatory assholeness, then I'm okay. I'd like to hear from you. I definitely like to hear from anybody who listens to this because I don't really know. I don't know if this is resonating in any sort of way, and we've put quite a bit of work into it. We're on pretty much. We're on SoundCloud. We're on platforms. That noise that you're hearing right now, just in case people don't remember from last week, that's going to be the exhaust fan for my furnace. It wouldn't have been working had I not run to town and got a new belt. Um, I went downstairs and there was this electric whining noise this morning. I was going grocery shopping, and I'm Mr. Disaster. So when shit like that happens, I think, oh my God, my entire world is going to explode, right? Well, I went and took a look at it, and it was the blower fan. It's belt driven, so the motor runs the belt on the fan, and there's two pulleys, and if in case you don't know about that kind of stuff, there's two pulleys, and the motor runs the pulley on the fan, and it pushes the air throughout the entire house. Well, the belt fell off, and there's maybe an inch to 2 inches between each and every one of the cracks that were in that belt, and it was leaving black residue on my fingers. So the belt was very, very old, and the house that I stay at used to be my grandmother's house, and my grandfather was a uh, very good at running around and checking on things, and seeing problems before they happened and solving them before they got to be a huge issue. So you really were, like, if there was a water issue or a power issue or whatever, you were without power for a couple hours instead of a couple days. Well, my grandmother became accustomed to that, and he died probably 15 to 20 years before she did. So then for 15 to 20 years, this house was left to, if it broke, she fixed it and complained about it the whole time. So I'm now staying here and trying to catch up because I'm much like my grandfather. So I'm running around like, oh, there's this, oh, there's that, oh, there's this, oh, there's that. Okay, I'm going to pull my goddamn hair out because my mother owns the house and she expects me to do as much of the work by myself as I can, and then and then she complains about, the the um, the parts, and it's like, well, I could charge you labor and parts and not do it at all, and the guys that charge labor around here are exponentially more money than they should be. I mean, maybe not, every guy's got his own worth and value, and that's up to him, but I don't charge her. I mean, I live here, I pay the bills and whatever, but that kind of stuff, I'm not gonna pay all of that, because it's not my fault that the house is in fairly big state of disrepair, So I mean, I cover some of it, but I'm not covering all of it. That's because it's just, I mean, I'm not in a secure financial position, um, you know, much less I do all the work on top of it. So I feel like at certain points I should get a break. Maybe that's unrealistic or, selfish or whatever, but that's just how I feel about it. Anyway, so the point is that I I had to go to town and get a belt. So you wouldn't be hearing that noise had I not done that, but we had our first snow the last time I taped the podcast. We had our first flurries. And as of a couple days ago, we had our first actual snowfall. And man, did it fall! I mean, it was thick, it was heavy. I went outside during it, and I heard what sounded like a gunshot, and a tree fell over. So it was so heavy, it was knocking trees over. One of the branches on one of my bushes out there is completely broken because it was touching the ground when the snow was here, because it was so heavy as snow. But it's all gone now, and the only thing it's reminding me is that, like I said last time, like Game of Thrones, winter is coming. Well, winter is definitely almost here, and yeah, I don't like paying heating bills, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so I apologize for the noise. It will come on intermittently. It's, it is what it is. I can't do anything about it. Like I said, I can't go anywhere in the house where you're not going to hear it. So if I move the podcast, you're still going to hear it. My last episode was fairly long. I think that was because we had gone from free accounts to paid accounts, and then UFC 229 happened too. And I talked about some other stuff too, like the bathrooms and Walmart stuff. And when I tend to get upset about stuff like that, then I tend to ramble on. And I don't know if that was too long. I'd honestly like some opinions. How long do you think the podcast should be? Do you think I petered out? I definitely think I did it with the Brewers thing, because I kind of just talked about them for the sake of talking about them. However, because they played tonight, and I think they lost, and I watched, they were doing okay, but they lost night before last, and then today. I'm taping this on a Wednesday, and they lost last night too, or they lost tonight too, as far as I know, because Kershaw was pitching a shutout. So like I said, if you guys have anything to say, I would definitely like to hear from you. And I'm doing it in the beginning of the podcast because I don't know, because it's such a long podcast, I don't know how many people are listening till the end. So I'm kind of asking for feedback in the beginning. I'll ask for it at the end too, just in case. But yeah. So my first topic tonight is based on where I live, and this might be the case in a lot of other places, but these people who modify their cars, like not for any real purpose other than for it to be flashy and garner attention and all this other stuff. Why? Like, why are you doing that? I mean, I get you want to differentiate yourself. You want to peacock a little bit. Maybe you don't have a girlfriend, and we don't have blooming plumes of feathers that we can use to attract women, and we're not that fancy, and you might be a plain looking dude, or and some women do it too. I won't say it's just dudes, but I'm mostly interested in dudes because that's what I see driving these things around, and I'm trying to understand why they choose, why men choose to spend their money on this. It seems foolish to me. Like in this area, and it may be the case in other areas, I don't travel very much, so I don't really know. But I do know that it seems to be a statewide phenomenon here. And I've heard that it's outside of the state. I can't say for certain because I don't go very many places, but this jacked up truck bullshit. What the why are you jacking? Okay, you're going to make your truck 25 feet in the fucking air. You're not. Buy a monster truck. Save your money and buy a fucking monster. Just buy a monster truck and be done with it. Go buy Gravedigger when he retires. I mean, the idea that we need your tire, you need trucks that are 12 feet in the air with 25,000 feet fucking of rubber underneath them, and then these and the exhaust. Okay, if any of you are listening to this and you have one of these exhausts, I'm you might be the most wonderful person to deal with, and I might like you a lot as a friend, or whatever, we could get along really well. But if I see you with one of those mufflers and you get out of the car, like if I worked with you and you got out of the car, I would immediately not like you. Now, you could change my mind. I'm not that close minded, but I hate those fucking mufflers like you would not believe. What is the fucking point of that? There's this guy the other day, and the crystallization of this was this guy. He's driving a VW Bug. I'm assuming it was a diesel one because it sounded like a diesel when he was sitting next to me at the stoplight. And he decided to hit that gas when we got out of the stoplight, and you heard, and I'm like, I couldn't believe it because it's like, what is wrong with you? It's a goddamn Beetle. Get a better car. On some of those cars, it makes sense. Like if you have a Lamborghini, like you watch, I don't know if any of you have ever watched the show Top Gear or any of the car shows, but Top Gear is my favorite. It was my favorite, and now it's the Grand Tour on Amazon Prime with Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond, and James May. And they are these older British guys who are kind of funny, and well, they're actually pretty funny, and they run around reviewing these cars, and they have like Lamborghini Aventadors and Ferrari things, and those kind of things, and those cars make that noise, but they're like 12-cylinder motors. It makes sense for them to make that noise. Your shitty little diesel VW Bug should shut the fuck up. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't drive it or whatever, but I'm not saying you should draw attention to the fact that you drive it and you think you're a cool dude, because I don't know anybody who drives around in those kind of cars, and I I just don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand why. And you realize that for as much attention as you're attracting with your bullshit muffler from maybe some women, or whatever, you're garnering two other kinds of attention. Negative attention from people like me, because there's a lot of people like me, because I talk to people and people are like, what the fuck is with that? And I'm like, I don't know. It's the stupidest fucking thing, and it annoys the shit out of me. And then cops. You go past the cop with one of them fucking mufflers, they're going to follow you. Because even if you're going the speed limit, your muffler says, I'm a dickhead and I don't care about anybody else. So he's naturally going to assume, he's a dickhead who doesn't care about anybody else. Yeah, he probably doesn't follow the speed limit. I should follow him. And around here, if you have a certain kind of car with decked out, with a different kind of muffler and blacked out windows and that kind of things, they think you're a drug dealer. That's pure and simple. You can say, "Oh, that's profiling." Who cares? It might be, but that's what they do, and you can't prove it in court that they didn't do that. So you're asking a police officer to ignore you. I mean, if you're doing something illegal, you would think a lot of these guys, like the smart ones that do illegal shit for a really long time, you know how they get away with it for so long? Everybody's like, oh, he was such a good criminal. No, he's not an idiot. Like, he did stuff that didn't draw attention to him. And you drug dealers are running around with these fucking mufflers and these stupid messed up cars and all this other stuff. And you're just like, it's just like a starter pack. There's a starter pack for a drug dealer, and you decided, yeah, I'm going to do all that. Get a bunch of tattoos and all this other stuff. And granted, that's a gross generalization, and I'm not saying everybody with tattoos or a messed up car or with a jacked up car and all that other stuff is a drug dealer. But you're more likely to be seen as a drug dealer by police officers if you do these things, and that is what they look for. And so, if you're going to do all of that, you're going to garner more attention in negative ways. You're going to garner more attention negatively from the police, which I would think would be the opposite of what you want. Because I don't know about you, but I hate getting pulled over by the cops. I don't like when a cop goes by me because I feel like, oh shit, he's going to do something. And I've never had a problem with them. Like, I've never had an issue. I've never been arrested. None of that stuff. So I don't have that issue, but I just naturally feel that way because that is what you're led to believe, through all kinds of different media. And so I do whatever I can to avoid that. I mean, I drive a red car, and studies say that you get pulled over more in a red car than you do in any other car, which is sad for me because I've had one black car and I had two red cars. So I've been, blazing red for, oh Christ, 10 years, maybe more. No, 8 years, something like that. I don't know. I got to stop thinking on the podcast because that just leaves big dead spots, and people are like, "What are you doing?" But he, so that's about the only thing I do. But I don't jack up my car. I don't put mufflers on. I do. And what is with these lights? These lights that people are putting on now. I mean, if your intent is to blind other drivers so they crash into you, good job, because that happens to me. Like, there are some of those lights that are pointed right at my fucking face. And I drive a small SUV that's not on the ground, but when I drive my girlfriend's car, which is on the ground, those fucking lights are directly in my eyeballs. And these fucking people, they drive by, and then the fucking pickup trucks with not only the dick headlights and the headlights, but then they're the dick headlights on the fucking what are those called? Fog lamps. The fog lamps are dick headlights. Like, those used to be lower, now they're just as bright, if not more so. So then I'm blinded. Like, it's like this fucking. It's like they're taking my fucking picture, except it's not a flash. It's just this constant beam of light in my eyeball, and it's like, okay, I gotta. If you're going on like one of my back roads here that are really small and it's like fucking pitch black, and I keep like the lights and stuff in the car, like I don't have them on my dials. I don't have those lit up because I can pretty much like almost fucking see in the dark. Like, I have really good night vision. And so I keep all that shit dark, so then at night, especially around where I live, there's a million and a half deer. So I drive around and I want to see them before they come there. And I have the crappiest lights. Like, the car that I have, the lights are just awful. They're horrible. My girlfriend's lights are 300 times better. Every time I drive her car, it's like, oh my God, you can actually see. I can't. But the point being is that, so I'm driving down the road in the middle of the night. It's not the middle of the night, but now it gets dark by 7 o'clock. So you're coming around a corner, and all of a sudden this fucking wall of light hits you in the eyeballs, and it's like, ah! And these roads are barely big enough for two cars. So I'm basically, you can go 55, but I'm slowing down to like 35 miles an hour and letting this truck go by me because it's like, I can't. What the fuck was that? I mean, maybe that's what happened like years ago. People drove back from the fucking future and, blinded people in a field with those stupid lights, and they thought it was an alien because they passed out because their fucking brain short circuit. I don't know, but these lights are stupid. The fucking mufflers are stupid. I mean, it's just being inconsiderate to your other, to other drivers. And, you think, oh, well, what's the difference? I can drive whatever I want to drive, and it's like, that's true, I guess. But, the other thing is, hang on. The other thing is that you, even if you drive, if you drive that thing, you drive your truck, right? You drive your truck and you think, well, they should be considerate or whatever. You are sharing the road. Goes back to when I talked about the gym in episode 2. You're sharing the gym with these people. You're sharing the road. Like, we have such little respect for everybody else. Like, I don't have my brights on. There are people on the highway that have brights on the entire time. They never turn them off, and they have dick headlights, and you can tell. Trust me, I can tell the difference between when you have your lights on and when you don't. But now with the dick headlights, it doesn't make any difference because when they turn their brights on, I'm blinded for 20 minutes instead of being blinded the entire time they're there, and it's unbelievable. Like, these lights don't make sense, and there's no reason for you to have them. And then now the lights, you don't even turn them off in the fucking daytime. What do you need lights on in the middle of the day for? It's noon. What the fuck do you need your lights on for? Is there something that's going to come out of the ditch that you're not going to see with your lights off? I mean, I would hope the sun shine, if it's raining or something like that, but on perfectly normal sunny days where you have your lights on, and well, they're auto lights now. Well, of course they're auto lights because the auto manufacturers want you to burn out lights and burn batteries and alternators faster and do all that shit faster. And also, we're lazy fuckers. So we don't want to turn our lights on anymore. And you can't turn that auto shit off either because my girlfriend has a car. Her car has that. Mine doesn't. And and if every car has that, I'm going to figure out a way to short circuit that and do it a different way because there's no reason that you need your lights on that you can't decide for yourself. This goes back to the bathroom thing from last week too. I can't decide for myself when I need my lights on. You're gonna have. I mean, it used to be that the lights would turn on at 5 o'clock in cars. Now they're on all day because they're auto lights and people don't turn them off because you have to switch the switch down. This especially is with Chevys from what I know. I don't know about Dodges and all that other stuff because I have my girlfriend's car is a Chevy and that's the one with the auto lights. And you turn that on, you turn it off, and then as soon as you turn the car back on, it's still on auto. There should be a switch where you can turn it up one and it goes off. And you just turn it on auto when you want it on. But you're not smart enough to make that choice, sir. You're not smart enough to make that choice, man. That's what they're saying to you. Do you not see it that way? I mean, if people don't see it that way, I don't understand how that's possible because that's the way I look at it. They're telling me that I'm not intelligent enough to know when to turn my lights on. So then all these people who have their lights on all day long and then it's 5 o'clock and it's kind of getting dark, but it's not dark enough that you need your lights on. I mean, I can have my sunglasses on and drive, till about 6:30 without the lights on. And these people got their fucking lights on at 4 o'clock and they're flashing their brights at me like, hey man, your lights on. Every other monkey has his lights on. Why don't you have your monkey? It's like, because I don't fucking need them. They're not helping me. Like I turn them on and it's like, are my lights on? No. Well, they're courteous to your other drivers. In the rain, yes. In the snow, sometimes. But in general, in the middle of the day, when it's clear, if you can't see my red fucking car coming, time to get off the road. Or maybe you're colorblind. Still. The lights aren't going to help you a whole lot. At least I don't know. I honestly don't know how that works with colorblind, like the intensity of light versus not. But, the point being is that if you're not colorblind and my fucking bright red car is coming at you, I think you can see me coming. And if you can't, you need to pay more fucking attention because you know what? When there's cars, it shouldn't be when there's cars going by me without lights on. I'm like, hey man, you don't have your lights on, cool. It just drives me nuts. And just the way people drive in general is just because they put the mufflers on and then they go by. Like I live in the middle of the country and I got all these assholes with these jacked up trucks and these stupid mufflers. And not even all of them are installed mufflers. They're fucking assholes who don't fix the mufflers that they have. So they go by and it's, Christ, I can't. I'm gonna go away from the microphone for that. Like that fucking noise going past at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, granted, I'm still awake, but What the fuck are you going? Why do you want to make that much noise past somebody's house at 3 o'clock in the morning? Like my house isn't that far from the road. That's a dick move as far as I'm concerned. And if you have a muffler that makes noise on purpose, like you speed up and it's like, bah! And you're right next to a guy. I mean, if you want a muffler that's that loud that you don't have to, do anything with, get a motorcycle. Now here you can't ride it all year round. Oh, boo-hoo, you can only be a loud, annoying dickhead, half of the year or 3-4 months out of the year. I don't feel bad for these people. I really don't. And if you're one of these people who has these mufflers and, you're listening, maybe you're a really nice person and maybe you do it for a different reason. But the way I look at it is that, you know what I'm saying? So when you're driving down the street, you may want attention, but that's some of the attention you're going to garner. You're going to garner people with who want to take a baseball bat to your fucking car because it's like, you ignorant piece of shit. Now, you may not be an ignorant piece of shit. It may be that, I don't know, your grandfather had a fucking GTO that had a muffler that was crazy and it made a shitload of noise and you really like that, but you can only afford a little 4-banger fucking motor, and so you put that muffler on it to try to simulate that because you died and whatever. That may be, and that would change my mind a little bit. But what I would say to you in that situation, and I'd be like, well, you got that little 4-banger, keep that money that you paid for the damn muffler, save up and try to buy a car like he had. And honor him in that way. Work hard for it. You'll appreciate it more. That's how I would look at it if it was me. But I hate those mufflers so much, and the lights are so terrible. It hurts my fucking eyeballs, you dick. Like it kills me. How I mean, I can't go to the bathroom the way I want to. We covered that last week. Now I can't even drive down the road without having like my senses be assaulted. Like, and I can't be in my house without having that either because I used to live in town when I used to live at my mother's place, and they'd go past the house, and I was in the basement and I could hear them. It's like, how big of a goddamn muffler do you need? And a lot of people say that, it has to do with the size of their penis and the fact that, they got small dick disease and all this other stuff. I don't know if that's the case. I really have no idea. But the point being is that if if you're drawing more police attention because they think that you're, some kind of scumbag because they just associate that with scumbags. If people who don't think you have a small dick want to beat you because you're annoying and inconsiderate, and then some people think it's because you have a small dick, why the fuck would you do it? If all of these things are there, why would you do that? Why would you do that to yourself? Like, why would you say, oh, you know, I have to do this. I have to do this. Like, I got, that's cool. That's cool. Oh, it's cool. You think those three things are cool? Okay. Well, when you get picked up by the cops and then have a negative relationship with the cops and eventually mouth off and then get some kind of fucking citation that's like $500, you have fun with that. When you get confronted in a parking lot, that which happened to somebody that I know, they get confronted in a parking lot by a guy because your muffler's ridiculously loud, and he's like, dude, do you really need a muffler that loud? And he's like, yeah, man, isn't it cool? And the guy's like, no, I don't think it's cool. I think it's fucking bullshit, and you're an immature piece of shit. And that guy like didn't know what to say, and he's like, and the guy started walking away, and he like waited like 3 seconds. There was a pause, and he's like, fuck you, man. And that guy turned around. He's like, and he was not a small dude. I happened to be here when this happened. And I guess a small dude. And he's like, I'll fucking kick your ass if that's what you want. He said, I just said something to you, and that's how I feel about it. And I was going to go about my day. And my friend was there, and I'm like, dude, shut up. Just shut the fuck up. Shut up. And he did. And then it was over. But if that's the kind of reaction you're garnering, or there's people out there who think, oh, there goes a guy with a tiny wiener. Like, what the fuck? Why the fuck would you do that to yourself? Why? Because it proves that you can put in a muffler. That's impressive. I mean, I can't do it, but I'd rather you put in mufflers are meant to make it quieter, not louder. I mean, that's why mufflers were partially invented, to quiet the noise. I don't know. It just seems to me that, like, if you're modifying your vehicle, it should make it better. Like, you modify it to get better gas mileage. You modify it to make it go faster. And some of that stuff does do that. I mean, I won't say it doesn't. I know some of that noise making stuff that it does is upgrades. I know the turbo in diesel motors makes a hell of a noise because you can hear those guys when they go by and stuff like that. But the point being is that I just I don't see the point of the mufflers. I don't see the point of the jacking up of the truck, and I because half of those guys, they wash their truck. They're their babies, right? And there could be some women who do that. I just say guys because that's what I see. That is the focus of the truck thing that I have, because that's what I see every time I see one of those jacked up trucks with an annoying ass muffler. It's not even a guy. Well, sometimes it's a guy. He's probably in his early 20s, mid 20s, but it's between the ages of, like, I can drive to I'm not 30 yet. And there's some guys over 30 that do it, and those guys really annoy me because it's like, really, you look like you're over 30. You should have better idea what the hell to do at this point. But the point, the thing is that when you make that decision, and people say, oh, okay, well, there's this and there's that, I just I don't understand. I really don't understand, and I don't understand why in the hell, you know, if it's that loud and stuff like that and it improves the performance, okay, I get that to a degree. But the mufflers, you know, some of them don't make that much difference as an improvement, and they make noise just like I think there were cherry bomb mufflers that used to be when I was in high school. That was what everybody was putting in their cars, and there was a bunch of like 1995 Honda Civics that were rusted pieces of shit that had that fucking muffler in it and going and just making a shitload. I'm just here to say, you guys, if if you have that problem or you have that want, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. And again, I'm not saying that you're a bad person if you have it and you're listening to this. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is my perspective and this is how I see it. So I'm wondering, and I don't understand why you would choose to do it if because you know that you have to know that's perspective of other people, right? Or do you not care about that? Is this such a self-centered fucking thing that you really because then you're just proving my point that you're a self-centered dickhead, because making a bunch of noise in the neighborhood, what's the point of that? Um, it's the same thing with like speakers and stuff like that, going past in the middle of the night and you hear and it's like all I hear is bass. Your music isn't being played. You're just making racket as you go past my house. And there's no reason to do that at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, I mean, and if you're doing it for a specific reason, then that's one thing. But most of these people are just doing it because, and then, at 3 o'clock in the morning, they're still banging their tunes and jumping on the gas so they can, make that sucker snort. That's what somebody used to say to me. That's like, no. What? What? No. What? Don't, just don't do stuff. I don't know. And I'm, like I said, I'm not saying you guys are bad people if you do it. I'm just saying that I think it's very inconsiderate of everybody else around you. I mean, it really is. And maybe you'll say, well, sir, your podcast is inconsiderate because, nobody wants to listen to you talk. That's entirely possible. That's entirely possible. So maybe this is my striking back at the people who drive their cars around and make a shitload of noise and blind me at night and all this other shit that goes on because, they're too stupid to figure out that, they don't need to see, they don't need fucking, flash floodlights because it's not that dark. We don't live in pitch black. But I don't know. I just wish that if you're listening to this and you're considering modifying your vehicle, because you want it to be like a different vehicle or whatever, put that money away and put it in an account or a fund or something, and get somebody to invest it for you or whatever, and try to find a way to buy whatever car that is. Don't take your shitty car and make it a shitty representation of that. Get the actual thing. Figure out a way to do that. I think personally that's what I'd rather do. But that's just me. I don't need those things personally. Like I don't. I'm not one of those guys who needs, you know, um, I don't have a fancy car. I don't need all these things. I had the conversation with somebody a while ago. I was like, I don't, all these things that people push on me and say are important and all this other stuff. I don't really need them. I don't think they're important. I don't want them. And it was one of the few times in recent history that I've had self doubt about where I am and all that other stuff because I'm or I guess that isn't really an accurate statement. A more accurate statement would be I was questioning myself, and I very rarely do that because I'm kind of you know I understand how I got here. I understand where I came from. I understand how these things happened, and I'm just going with what I'm rolling with the punches. And I didn't do that for a long time, and I learned how to do it, and I kind of just am like, well, it's the way it is, and that's the way it is. I'm okay with who I am because that's the way it is. And I try to be better and all that other stuff. Like I don't give up, but the point is that I don't punish myself because I don't have a Lamborghini, or I don't punish myself because I don't make as much money as some people that I know, or I don't make as much, I'm not as successful as I had hoped to be, or as people I know are, or, I'm not as far along. I don't measure myself against other people. I measure myself against myself and where I could have been or what I could have done. And how I could have wound up in a different way. I mean, there's a lot of ways I could have taken wrong turns, and I could have been in and out of jail, and I had knocked up chicks and had a bunch of illegitimate kids, and yeah, there's a bunch of ways my life could have gone that didn't wind up happening that I feel are for the better. Now maybe if you're living like that and you like it, well, then maybe you're like, hey man, you should have tried it. Well, I'm not. Maybe that works for you. Good. I'm glad you like it. Good. I don't think it would have worked for me. I thought, when I was younger, I thought about going in the military, but I am an individualist beyond belief. So they would have yelled at me, and I'd be like, "Fuck you! What the fuck? You want me to do it? I'll do it, but don't fucking yell at me." Oh, you go, humble break you, boy. Good luck, cause you ain't gonna break me. You can kick me out, but you ain't gonna break me, cause I'm not that guy. Like, you try to break me, I'll flip the fuck out. Like that Full Metal Jacket movie, that'd be fucking me. I'd just start shooting people. Like I'd lose my mind because I I that's the only way I could see that ending. I don't get broken. But I don't think I'd do that anyway, just because I'd probably leave. That's kind of my thing. I get to that breaking point, and I'm like, fuck this. This is not worth it. I'm done. Bye. And that was the main reason, because I knew I wasn't going to take well to that kind of treatment, and I wasn't, I wasn't their audience for that. So I knew I had to stay home. And yeah, I still think about it every once in a while, because I'm not that old yet, and I think about, maybe I should do that, because I don't know why the hell I think that, but I do. And so I don't, I just don't do it, because I know still I'm too much of an individualist. And maybe that's why you guys who do the truck thing and do the modifications of your cars, you're an individualist and you think that's a way of expressing yourself. And I guess I can see that. But could you do a more considerate way? Like, paint your cars. I like the painted stuff. Do painting. That's fucking awesome. Like, I you remember seeing the vans from the old days, from the 70s, and even I think that went into the 80s, and there's still some now. Those are cool. I like the murals on the side of shit. I like different paint jobs. I like, modify it that way. Make it artistic. Then I can appreciate it as go by and go, damn, that was a cool color. I like, hey, look at that. That's interesting. I don't have to listen to bang, go by my house at 3 o'clock in the fucking morning, and I want to get the shotgun out and shoot your tire out. There's a little difference there. You know what I'm saying? So if you want, I guess I can't tell you how to be an individualist, but I just think for me, if I was an individualist, and which I am, that's what I would do. I would paint it and make it a different color, and make it my own that way, because I do a color that whatever brand of car I had doesn't offer, and isn't necessarily seen very often, and I liked it, and it might be a little self-design or whatever. I'm not artsy fartsy in that way. I'm more of a logical person, and I think when you have too much logic, I think that interferes with being creative, because to be creative, you have to understand that you have to not look at what can happen as far as failure. You have to just kind of throw yourself into it. And I don't, this is probably the most creative thing I do. I sit down and I talk for however long to you people who listen, or no one, to myself, but either way. And I don't really care, because it was a small investment, and this is all stuff that I can use for other purposes. So, and I got some of it for free, and I I've had some help. I don't do it all by myself. So there's reasons. Like, I can logic my way through it. If I had to do it all by myself, and I had nothing behind me, anyone helping me, whatever, I probably wouldn't do it. It probably wouldn't happen, because I would be like, okay, this is going to fail miserably, because you have no idea what you're doing, and you've never done this before, and you're not going to do it to the degree that you should. So let's not start. And I think really creative people, like extremely, like artists, like musicians, and like art people, like people who paint and stuff like that, they don't give a fuck. They have this passion for this thing. They're gonna do it, and if success comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But they're happy doing that thing. I think that my inability to step outside of the, well, okay, but then you're going to be broke, and you're going to be sad, and you're going to be this, and you're going to be that, and I'm that guy, and that's who I am in my own head. I try not to do that to people I know who are creative, because I know that I can give you a million reasons why not to do something. I can piss all over your life, and I try not to do that to everybody. If I truly think that, if you're trying to do it, but you're also like kind of doing this other thing on the side, and it's kind of supporting that thing, and you're kind of doing it. It's like more than a hobby, but it's not exactly like costing you your life. Then I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna say anything. But if you suck and you're wasting your life doing that, I probably will tell you. And this thing, as far as that goes, for me, I'm just sitting here for however long one night a week, and it goes up, and whoever downloads it, and whoever doesn't, and then that's it. So I guess being an individualist and being creative and that kind of stuff with your car, I would hope that you could be different in certain ways. That's what I would like. I'd like you to be different in certain ways that aren't like aggressively annoying and kind of just inconsiderate, because a different paint job isn't inconsiderate. Well, I mean, if you get it and you don't tell anybody. Like, my friend came to my house and he had never been here before, and so he met me at a place but didn't bother to tell me he had a different car. So I drove in and he was sitting there, but I didn't know it was him, and he knew it was me. So he comes over and I'm like, the fuck? He's like, what? You didn't tell me you had a new car. I didn't. I'm like, you fucking idiot. You'd think you'd tell somebody. You're meeting somebody somewhere, they got to look for you. You tell them, hey man, I got a new car. This is at least the fucking color. So go from a fucking car to an SUV, a different fucking. He had a Pontiac, then he had his Chevy. It's just crazy. That was ridiculous. But so in and of that you can be an individualist and be creative, but I'd like it if you did it in a way that was more considerate. There's this national company that's being very inconsiderate to a large portion of the United States of America, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as the statistics are concerned. ESPN has this new thing. They're trying to push this ESPN Plus, and it's basically like Netflix for ESPN. It's not exactly the same. There's not movies and stuff, but they're doing this online streaming service, and they're doing all this stuff for it, and it's ESPN only, and I think it's $8 a month, and they're offering like 30 for 30 movies that are only on there. Eventually they come to ESPN, at least they have in the past. The UFC is going to ESPN the end of the start of January of next year, and they're having I think it's like 77% of their content is going to be on ESPN Plus. Right now, UFC is on is with Fox, and they have a few events a year on Fox on regular TV. They have a few events. They have more events on FS1, and then they have like 3 or 4 events a year on Fight Pass. Maybe more than that, but I don't know, because I don't watch any of that streaming shit. Like, if it says Fight Pass, I don't even care. I don't care. Like, I'll wait to see the results. It's kind of like a pay-per-view for me. But at least the pay-per-view prelims, like for UFC 229, which I talked about last week, is on FS1, so I can watch the prelims. And sometimes there's some really good fights on there. What was the good? Sergio Pettis was on the last one. He fought some UCR Formiga. That was, I think, the main, like the top undercard fight. And there were a couple other ones with guys that I knew, and they were good fights too. And I enjoyed it. But the point being is that now ESPN has taken 70% of the content that UFC puts out there, other than what's on pay-per-view, and they're putting it on this fucking streaming service. Now, there's some statistic I read that like a large portion of the United States of America does not have reliable internet access. They don't have fucking reliable. So I'm supposed to get. I pay for Dish. I pay for satellite TV. And I have internet, but that comes through a fucking satellite too. And it's like data, like on your phone, and I have so many gigabytes. So I'm supposed to pay the Dish bill, which has fucking ESPN on it. And ESPN used to charge like, and the way I understand that it works now, somebody might work in cable or Dish or whatever and be like, hey man, you're way off. But the way I understand it is that you get these things called carrier fees, and then, however much it costs for that provider, like say DirecTV or whatever, to they charge the channel charges those people a carrier fee, so you can watch that channel, and then you get a piece. You have to pay a piece of that. So ESPN was one of the largest pieces of that. With this cord cutting bullshit that went on, they were like $15. That's what I had read somewhere, and it was a long time ago, so it might be incorrect, but that's what I read. So now I think their price has dropped, and because of the cord cutting, I think they dropped their price, and now they're picking up, or they've lost so many. I think it was. I read that they lost so many subscribers that they're down to X amount of money, and to recoup all that money, instead of having, because they only got a portion of the carrier fee that they charged the Dish. This is way over my head. I'm not exactly, because I used to know all about this because there was fights, constantly on certain networks, and networks were fighting with other stuff. Like Dish Network was fighting with a bunch of people, and like this kept going back and forth at first because when the cord cutting really got bad for a few years, like it's kind of leveled off now, but it was really bad for a while. They were fighting with everybody like, no, we need lower fees. We have to charge these people less. Now it's more because they're using, oh, we don't have anybody, so blah blah blah. But so now they're taking that entire $8 from you, or it's less than that. I don't know how much it is. It's not over 10 and it's not less than 5. I'm pretty sure of that. And they're going to take the UFC away from me. That's what they're doing. Like, they're taking away the fucking free events because they're not free. Oh, I got to pay 5. I already fucking pay for ESPN. I pay for ESPN 1. I pay for ESPN 2. I pay for ESPN U. I pay for ESPN News. I pay for the fucking ESPN alternates. You son of a bitch. Fucking put the goddamn put the fucking fight on one of those channels. You pieces of shit. Like, I'm so mad about that. You have no idea. Like, it's ridiculous. And I get now everybody wants to stream everything and Netflix is so wonderful and all this crap. If you don't have reliable internet, it's not that fucking wonderful. And the fact that there's a large portion of this country that doesn't have internet, and you people are just like, the people that live in the bigger cities have wonderful internet, and you can pay $7.99 for fucking Netflix, and you can pay $6 for ESPN, and you can pick and choose what channels you want, and you can pay for their wonderful packages, which gives you everything that's on TV plus a little extra because you're special. Great, but you're driving. You're inconsiderate. Like, not only it's not your job to be considerate, but it's the company's fucking job to be smart enough to be like, hey man, we're screwing out the rest of these people. Because if you're taking, like, they took the Junior Seau 30 for 30 about Junior Seau, and they took it off the channel and they put it on ESPN Plus. Well, I like those movies. Like, I really like the ESPN 30 for 30s. They're one of my favorite things. And had they done that with the Ric Flair documentary, or had they done that with, the USFL one, which I only saw a quarter of because the day that it was on, I didn't realize, and I caught like the last hour and 15 minutes or so. I saw most of it, but I didn't see all of it. I didn't see the beginning, which is really made me mad because I wanted to see how it got started, And now they're taking those and they're taking good ones, like the Bobby Knight one. What happened to Bobby Knight at Indiana when he beat up a kid or whatever, or he threw a chair at a kid? I don't remember, but he did something not nice to a kid, and then he got in, and it was really bad. Like, he was abusive towards the kids on his program, and he got kicked out of Indiana, even though he was really successful. And they did that movie. I think it's called The Last Days of Night, and like they did that movie and put it on ESPN Plus. Now it's coming to ESPN, but it came out like last summer, not this last summer, but the one before. It's like, you guys are fucking jerk offs. Like, you're jerk. I mean, it's just bullshit. And the fact that I'm supposed to just sit there and eat it, because I'm not allowed to have an opinion. Well, why would you have an opinion? Because who cares about you, right? You live in some, fairly unincorporated part of America, and you don't even have decent internet, so what do we care about your opinion? You're not going to get on the internet and complain, and you can call our stupid call center all you want. We're going to put you on hold for 12 hours, and nobody has that kind of fucking, stick-to-itiveness to stay on the phone that long, and they're right, because I'm not going to. That's bullshit. I hate calling anybody that's like customer service, because I get stuck on fucking hold forever, and it's like, I've been on hold for over an hour. This is dumb. I'm hanging up. My mother, however, is of a different generation. She will be on hold for 4 hours and talk to those people and get what she wants because she ain't hanging up. And she's done that since she was young, so it's not like, oh, she's an old lady. Yeah, well, that's possible too, but she's been doing it for a long time because that's who she is. And that's a generational difference, I think. And they know that. So the younger people who are getting screwed aren't going to say anything. Plus, you don't have any money, so we don't care about you. You have no spending power because, the interest rates in the toilet and everything else. So we spend all our money constantly because it makes no sense to save it because we're not getting any money. You're losing money if you put it in the bank. It's just so infuriating because I like the UFC. That's one of my things I like watching. I don't watch the whole fight and dissect it and all that other bullshit, but, a couple times a week or a couple times a month, there's a fight. It's a 3-4 hour thing. I watch it. I zip through it. I get to see, knockouts. I get to see tap outs. I get to hear commentary about guys. I get to, check in with some people, that you've seen a few times, that kind of stuff. And they're taking that away from me. I guess I'm gonna have to start watching fucking Bellator. Except they're on this streaming site called The Zone. They had one of their best cards. They had Rampage Jackson versus Vanderlei Silva. They had, I think that was the first welterweight tournament. I think they had Carvalho on there. Oh no, that was Gegard Mousasi versus Rory McDonald, because they can't do pay-per-view like the UFC because they tried one and it was terrible. So they go to this fucking DAZN, which is DAZN, and I'm assuming it's like the zone, I don't really know, but that's my assumption. And they carried the UFC's packages overseas for a long time, and then now they're doing Bellator's streaming shit. And it's bullshit, because now Bellator's on that fucking thing. And I'm not paying $5 a month for that fucking thing too. So I can watch fucking Bellator, which is shittier than the UFC. I'm sorry, it is. They had that main event between Fedor and Chael last week. I think that was the night after I taped last week. They had Chael versus Fedor Emelianenko. And that's the second fight in Bellator that it looked like Chael Sonnen, it was fixed. I'm not saying it was fixed, but it looked fixed to me. Because he did that stupid thing where he tried to flip him, and then he just laid on the ground and let him get back on top of him. Like, he could have probably tapped him out from there. It looked like Fedor was exhausted. But he did that weird thing. And when he fought Tito, it looked like he just gave up. Now against Rampage, it looks like he actually fought. But I don't know how much Rampage had left in the tank, or has left in the tank, so I don't think that says a lot about Chael. But it looked like it was a work, because I'm assuming they want Fedor to beat Ryan Bader. And they want Fedor to win. Because I think Fedor, he comes from Russia, and there's a lot of corruption in Russia. You might not agree, but that is the sentiment. And so if that's the case, my guess is that he wants it set up in his favor, and him winning. And that also helps the promotion, because, Scott Coker doesn't have a lot of stars over there. So he's trying to pump him up. Now, if Bader beats Fedor, hey, that's a really good, that's a big feather in that dude's cap. And then he's the heavyweight champ and 205 champ, and he's walking around with 2 belts, and he's kind of a big deal. Bad talker, but a good fighter. And then there's Fedor, who's this huge name, but is super old and hasn't looked great in a long time. But if he wins, it's name recognition. So then you have Fedor Emelianenko as the heavyweight champion. I bet you he fights tomato cans for 3 years. Like or however much longer, however many fights he has left, he fights tomato cans. Like they're guys you're like, who is that? Because he's not going to fight Czech Congo. He's not going to fight Roy Nelson. He might fight Roy Nelson, because Roy Nelson is small for a heavyweight, and he's okay, but I don't know. And he's not going to fight Karatanov. He's not going to, he fought Frank Mir already, so there's no need. He fought, who's the other guy in that division that fought? Like Mitrione. He's not going to fight Mitrione. Actually, he already fought Mitrione, and then I think he lost. I don't remember. But the point being is he's not going to fight those guys again, because he already fought them. And if he fights Mitrione, they're probably going to try to make him take a dive. I don't know. But anyway, so the point is that Bellator is now on this fucking streaming service, and UFC is on the streaming service. Everything's on a fucking stream. I don't want to watch fucking streaming. I can't. Eddie Alvarez is one of my favorite fighters. I talked about that last week. Now he signed with fucking ONE FC, and I complained. I said, that makes me sad. Like, I was happy for him that he got money, but I was sad because I'm not going to be able to watch him. And some guy on Twitter's like, well, ONE FC has this new app that makes it easier, because I've never seen ONE FC ever, even when they had Ben Askren. And they're like, he's like, it's easier than ever. I'm like, I have shitty internet. I can't fucking watch apps. I can't watch this. I can't watch that. What I can watch is my fucking TV that I pay money for every month to be able to watch. And I don't understand why this became now this verboten thing where everything on TV, we can't have that on TV because we have to cater to these fucking streaming people. And I'm not saying if you're a streaming person, you're a bad person. I'm just saying that it should be equitable, because there are still subscribers for regular TV. There are still subscribers to Dish. There are still subscribers to cable. And to cater only to these online people, I mean, it's a strategy in business. I understand. You got to be the first to market, blah, blah, blah. You get more people, you get more money, whatever. But you're shortchanging the people who are still with you. Like, they bitched about cord cutting and bitched about cord cutting and bitched about cord cutting. I never cut the cord. I made sure my mother didn't cut the cord. I made sure my dad didn't cut the cord. Every fucking place I go to that I can watch fucking TV had unreasonable packages for those households, because my mother didn't watch that much TV and my dad didn't watch that much TV, like the amount of channels that I do. But I made sure they had decent packages, so when I went to either one of their houses, I could watch good TV. Now I have a outlandish package, probably more than I need and probably more than I probably should pay, but I have it. You know why? Because it's the one fucking thing I want. That is the thing I want for myself, right? And now I'm paying this amount of money every month, and these goddamn people are going to say to me now, okay, well, we're not going to give you our content. We're going to pay, what did they pay? Some kind of $1 billion for UFC rights, and we're going to put 70% or however many, more than half on fucking the goddamn ESPN Plus, which already is screwing me over because I'm not getting anything from ESPN Plus, and they're putting good stuff on ESPN Plus. I think they put the replay of Dan Lebatard's show, his radio show, which granted I can listen to on the podcast, but I like watching it because sometimes they do funny bits, and they do bits that don't work on the radio, and they say that it's not working on radio, but it's funny on TV. There was one I was watching where it was Stu Guts, and he had his gut on TV, and he was feeding it French fries and whatever, and they're like, this is uproariously funny. It wasn't really that funny, but it completely wouldn't work if you didn't see it at all. It was just kind of gross on TV. And the point of that being is that I wouldn't get to see that. And I think they have the replays on ESPN Plus for that. And there's a lot of times where that fucking channel will, change out. Oh, okay, well, we're not going to play them today. We're going to play this stupid basketball or, some dumb thing who cares? Like when they were on ESPNU, it was way worse. Now it's not as bad, but like they had Jameis Winston's press conference like 2 months ago, and when he was announced his suspension, and they cut to that for 45 minutes. And I'm like, nobody tells me about that. And then some days they're not even on ESPN News. They're on ESPNU or they change channels or whatever, and they don't tell you because either they don't know or they are, they're not the most organized show, so they forget to like blast it out. And granted, they did do it on Twitter more often, but I was never on Twitter because, before my podcast, I wasn't a Twitter guy, and um, so then I wouldn't know about it. Well, now they have all the replays on there, so I don't understand why I can't watch it on that. It's just bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's just this streaming stuff drives me insane. It drives me insane. And maybe I get too worked up about stuff, and that's, and I'm not saying if you like streaming, you're a bad person, or you should, fucking get rid of it and get regular TV and, pay twice as much because you can't afford it if you live in a big city. I understand. I'm more talking like, just think of it from my aspect. I don't have that option. I can't stream shit. I mean, I can, and then I can pay like $9 million for internet. Because the amount of money I pay for internet, then I'm supposed to pay. Because you live in a big town. You live in a big city. You get better internet deals. You're paying what, maybe your introductory rate's $40, then it goes up to 80, but you get as many megabytes as you want, or you don't even have worry. You just have however many you want and however much you use, and you're paying $80 for that. Well, there, say you pay $80 for 20 gigabytes. Okay, do you know how much 20 gigabytes is? Not a lot. Like watching one episode of something is like 3-4 gigabytes. Yeah, and then it's shitty quality too because it's not direct main line like the cable. It's over the internet. It's over a satellite. So then if it rains, you don't have internet, or if there's like some kind of fucking geothermal thing, I don't know, sometimes the fucking satellites just go down. I can't explain it, but that's what happens, and that's the life that I lead. So then I'm not supposed to be able to watch TV. I'm not supposed to be able to do this. I'm not supposed to be able to do that because, well, we got to do everything for streamers. Well, I'm getting screwed. So what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to leave my life. I'm supposed to start over again for like the however many time, and I'm supposed to go somewhere else and so I can actually have television. And I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just saying think about it that way. Think about if you were in that position. Would you like that very much? If you're sitting in some big city, I got a lot of Chicago listeners, and you guys probably have way faster internet than I could ever dream. Any of the cities around me, the way faster internet, way faster. You guys, my cousin lives in a suburb in Illinois, and they frickin' have internet that I was like, oh my god, internet goes this fast, you know. And that's the thing. I don't have that. None of the cities around here have that. So I'm just saying, think about it. Think about it for a minute. I'm not saying you got to do anything or whatever, but if you're like, well, why are you so mad about that? Just think about that. If you were sitting in that situation, you had no other choice but to watch regular TV, and then something that you really enjoy went on a channel that you're excited because it's like, oh, ESPN. I watch a lot on ESPN. I really like ESPN. You know, I want to see what they're going to say. I want to see what's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. And then instead of having ESPN at your disposal, they put it on fucking ESPN Plus and dispose of you instead. That seems unfair. That seems like bullshit, and it really upset me. And I didn't realize all that because they came to ESPN and I read all that. I think that was like 2 days ago. I think it was Sunday night or Monday night, and I was like, "You fuck, what the?" I was very mad. I was very mad when I read that. I'm obviously still upset about it. And I think this whole move to digital, like all this streaming shit, here's what I'm gonna say: figure out the internet in every goddamn, because you watch. Everybody was talking about the NFL going to like Amazon and Facebook and all this other stuff. And I read that thing that they won't do that because like however like 70 or whatever percent of the United States does not have access to reliable internet. And they're not going to cut out half of their customer base or 70% of their customer base, because everybody watches fucking football. Everybody watches football. Maybe they don't, but the NFL is smart enough to see 70% doesn't really have access to reliable internet. We're not going to punish them, and we're not going to punish ourselves financially either. Because you do that, they're going to be pissed off. And you think the kneeling thing was bad? Try that. I guarantee you more people are going to be. I remember how bad it was when people went, when they had games on NFL Network, when they started Thursday and it was only on NFL Network, and everybody, I remember I went to this bar and we had to go to the bar. Some guys had to go to the bar to watch fucking NFL Network because they didn't have it at home. And they were like, what the fuck? I can't watch the Packers at the guy. I gotta come fuck all the way here because and they were just nuts about it. And that was one game a year. One game a year they had to go watch at the bar. Now, granted, it was late at night, so if they got drunk, then they had to go to bed and they'd get up in the morning because it was on Thursday. But yeah, I understand that. But what I'm saying to you is the NFL is smart enough to figure that out. I think fucking ESPN, we're a goddamn cable company, a cable network. We started on fucking cable, and satellite, and we're gonna screw our initial watchers and initial people. It'd be like if I had people who started with my podcast, and then if it went somewhere and I got more famous and whatever, and then I just dropped them like a hat and never didn't recognize, didn't care, if all of a sudden I get this large following from Wisconsin, right, and my podcast moved me to bigger and better things, and say I moved, I don't know, I'm never going to probably live very far away, so probably Illinois. I'd go to Chicago because that's like the biggest big city near me, or Minneapolis, one of those two. And I went there, and then I just completely stopped talking about Wisconsin. I paid no attention to it, and anybody from Wisconsin, I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And they're like, dude, you lived in Wisconsin for like most of your life. No, I didn't. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm from here. And that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking. Like now, ESPN, oh, well, we're this online company. You're not a fucking online company. Stop it. Just stop it. Put UFC on my regular TV that I pay a lot of money to fucking watch, and shut up. I'm very sorry if you don't like that. I got that upset about that, but good God, did that make me angry, because I really like the UFC. I don't know if you can tell, and I like watching the fights, and I want to be able to watch it, and I was excited for the deal, and then I read that, and I was like, you fucking jerks. It was very disappointing, and I do not handle disappointment very well. That's one of my flaws. So I guess, we'll go from ESPN doing something wrong to a topic that's been all over ESPN for, good God, 2 weeks, it seems like. It's maybe less, but uh, the New York Giants, for those of you who aren't indoctrinated in football, our team obviously in New York, but their quarterback right now is Eli Manning. He's Peyton Manning's brother, and he was fairly good for a few years. I mean, he's not great, but he's not elite. But they always said, oh, you can't spell elite without Eli. But they had, he's obviously in decline. He's not like atrociously horrible, like he's better than Deshaun Kaiser, but he's not the same quarterback he used to be. And Odell Beckham is on that team. And that guy has been a problem on that team, as far as the way that the Giants culture is. They're not like that. They're not over, their histrionics aren't overly dramatic. They aren't crazy. They aren't blowing shit up and out of proportion and everything else. And whether you think what he's doing is or not is correct, I'm not here to argue that point. But what I am here to say is that this is, this isn't new. This isn't something that nobody could see. He went and talked to Lil Wayne away from the team and everything else, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, how could he do that?" Because he's Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, he complained. He had that thing where he was kicking the kickers, or yeah, the kickers net. There's a net where kickers warm up and they kick the ball into it before a kick. He went over there and he kicked the hell out of it and beat it up, and then he did this thing. That's who he is. He's a little out of his nut. He's a little out of his gourd. He gets a little over dramatic and acts a little crazy and whatever else. And he doesn't exactly fit like John Mara and that kind of culture. It doesn't seem like. But they gave him all this money. They tried to trade him to the Rams. That was the big story. I don't remember if that was last summer or the summer before, but they tried to trade him, right? They tried really hard to get rid of the guy. And they wanted a lot for him because he's a very talented player. I mean, he's a very, very talented player. You see that catch, and granted, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, that glove, that they wear." And granted, but there's guys that wear that glove that can't catch that ball. They can't do it because their hand-eye coordination isn't good enough, their hand strength isn't good enough, they don't jump high enough, whatever. But they can't make that catch with those same kind of gloves. He's gifted plus the gloves, and they help everything. But he uses them to his advantage, and he doesn't need that much advantage because he's gifted enough by himself. So he's had all this issue before. Now, it may not be a big issue, and you might be like, "Well, he's just expressing himself." I'm not arguing that. I mean, I'm not okay with it. I'm just confused as to the Giants being confused and upset. Like Pat Shermer's mad because I ain't talking about this anymore, and John Mara's talking about it, and Eli Manning's pretending it's not existing, and all this other stuff. And it's like, they seem genuinely either upset or confused, and I don't see how you could be either, because this is who Odell Beckham is. He causes trouble. He does things that aren't really exactly what you'd call Giant culture. I mean, the way that the Giants seem. He doesn't fit in line with Eli. Like, there was a picture of Eli on his back after a sack, and he was all confused looking and everything else. And I wrote on Twitter, I was like, "Can you help me? I'm lost. I just want to go home." Like, he looked like an old person who has dementia, who didn't know where they were. And he's not that old, but he's in a new offense. He's learning this new system. He's fighting with his number one receiver. And out of all of this right now, all of this turmoil is going on. They got that Saquon Barkley guy who's amazing. I mean, he had 100 receiving yards and over 100 rushing yards last week, and they still lost. And that guy, I mean, Jesus Christ, is he good. He's really good. Now, granted, he's kind of boom or bust. Like, he either has a really good game or he doesn't have a game at all, because that's just how he plays. And there was a lot of talk about that coming out of college, that was one of the worries with him. But they picked him, I think that was the number 2 pick overall. And they didn't pick a quarterback. And everybody said they should have. And it looks like the quarterback class that came out is pretty good. But the point being is that they've got this shining bright star. Saquon Barkley is this shining bright star. Now, granted, he just started and he might fall off massively, and everybody will look stupid, me included, for saying he's really good. But he looks really good right now. And all they're talking about is all this other crap because he's so overshadowed because they're that bad. I mean, they have spent money on the defensive line. They spent money on Nate Solder this year. They've spent money everywhere. They got a bunch. They Sterling Shepard and Odell Beckham Jr. They had Brandon Marshall last year. I'm trying to think who their third is this year. I mean, they have decent receivers. They got Evan Ingram at tight end. They got Solder at left tackle. They just got rid of Eric Flowers. But they have the places, and they have the pieces, but they just can't put it together. And it's partially Eli, but it's also team chemistry. There's obviously not a lot of chemistry there because, Odell Beckham's screaming about the quarterback and all this other stuff, and there's not a lot of people sticking up for him. Like, I've talked about Jimmy Butler quite a few times, And Jimmy Butler has like caused trouble, but Jeff Teague, who denied all that, has run around and like done a bunch of stuff and said, "Oh, it didn't happen." And he's like kind of semi protecting Jimmy Butler, and he might or might not be his teammate. So Eli wasn't really protected, and then Geno Smith, who they benched Eli for a time, broke his start streak, and then I think after one start they put him back in the lineup because everybody in New York was pissed off, like the people, not anybody in the office or anything else. And so they did that. And Geno Smith this week came out and was like, "See, I told you, Ben McAdoo, blah blah blah," and that was their ex-coach. And they were like, he's like, "I made the right decision, blah blah blah." And maybe all that's true, but the problem is that first of all, it's Geno Smith saying that, and secondarily, it's not exactly, you know, he's not exactly the best arbiter of that because he got to play and then he got yanked out and then they started. I think they played Davis Webb too, and he's not. I don't think he's on the team anymore. But the thing is that these guys, you know, they made this decision and then they brought him back. So obviously there was something wrong, and everybody on the team is like, yeah, there's something wrong, and nobody's defending him. So obviously everybody on the team either is following the Giant culture, which is to do it and shut the fuck up, or they're like, well, yeah, he's right. I'm not going to argue with him. Or maybe they just don't see it as useful to argue with him. But the thing that I have a problem with is everybody's up in arms about this. They're talking about it on all the sports stuff. And I'm not saying everybody, but it's on social media. It's on there. And so in the viewing of the sports prism that I see, there's a lot of discussion about it. But I'm confused as to why there's even discussion. Because Eli Manning obviously isn't that good. And Odell Beckham is not really like a quiet, demure guy. He causes trouble and acts out. That's what he does. So we're they're getting upset about something that's happened before and something that's happened before. Are your short-term like does everybody smoke a shitload of weed and I just don't know about it? Because I don't do that. So is it that everybody smokes so much weed that their short-term memory is as or even long-term memory because it's a short time ago and a long time ago that this kind of stuff has happened, and their memory is so shitty that they can't remember that. Yeah, hey, both of these things have happened in the fairly recent future, the recent past. Recent future would be interesting too if it happens again, and then everybody's surprised once more. But I just think these things are the way they are, and you guys are acting like or guys are acting like, oh my god, this is a huge deal, and it's like all this stuff's happened before. We're in repeats with this fucking bullshit. Why are we this? Why are you that mad? Why are we talking about this? Why is this an interesting topic? I mean, guys don't really care, and I don't care, and you don't care. We're only interested in, I guess, having an argument, and you can argue because you can say, well, Odell Beckham is right. No, Eli Manning is awesome, and it's like, well, neither one of those things is exactly true because should Odell come out and say, yeah, he's kind of washed up? No, he probably shouldn't say that. I mean, it might be the truth, but as a teammate, should you say that? I mean, I would, but I'm not a team sport guy. I'm an individualist. That's who I am. I do my podcast by myself. I don't really care about other people's opinions too much. So, I mean, now granted, I've asked for opinion on the podcast, but that's to make it better for you. If it's something about my own behavior, like, if I was Eli Manning, I wouldn't care what he had to say because I'd be like, well, get open and shut up, it's something like that. But, you know, and is Eli, you know, a great quarterback? Not really anymore. I don't know if he ever was. There was argument to be had. He won 2 Super Bowls, beat really good Patriot teams. He got lucky. Some people say it really good defense. Some people say all of that might be the case, but he won them. So you can't say that he's terrible. And I just think that there's things to be said for, there could be a little more, you know, they could be a little more judicious about what they're talking about on both sides. But I just think that everybody getting up in arms about it is wasted energy. I mean, why are we wasting energy talking about this? Why am I talking about this? That's my question. Like, I have to see this over and over again. It reminds me of like any number of like Tim Tebow. Every time Tim Tebow is mentioned, everybody's like, "Oh my God, Tim Tebow, Tim Tebow, Tim Tebow." It's like he's a mid-level to lower-level professional athlete. Like he's an okay baseball player and he was a decent football player. And he really wasn't like his throwing motion was kind of messed up. He held the ball too long. He could run. He was a huge dude. Not a lot of people wanted to tackle him, But he gave up football for a reason. And the football was like, yeah, we're done. I mean, when Bill Belichick doesn't want you anymore, I think that kind of sends a signal to the rest of the league. Now, you can argue with me that Tim Tebow's great, and I'm not going to say he wasn't. In college, he was one of the best quarterbacks. I mean, I'm not going to say he wasn't. But I don't think that necessarily is he. Um, I think that the fervor around Tebow. Same thing with RG3. Same thing. When RG3 came out and he was so good with the Redskins, I mean, that was just constant. And then all the bullshit that followed was just as constant as all the bullshit before. And it was like we just get the sports landscape gets fixated on this topic. And it's just insane. And this giant thing has been going on for a while. And it was like, oh my God. And it's because Odell Beckham is involved and he's one of these guys that people fixate on. And Eli seems to be too. For different reasons. I don't know why, but he just seems to be like this lightning rod for controversy. And he doesn't do anything. It just seems to find him because I guess because he's a quarterback in New York and the tabloids are up there and they got something to say about that. I really don't know. I've never lived in New York, nor do I know anybody or ever go to New York, but that's just the impression that I get. And so we're talking about this subject like, oh my God, we're breaking some kind of fourth wall here and we're finding a new, uh, type of alternative fuel that's going to save the world. No. And why are we still talking about this? Because Odell Beckham causes trouble and Eli Manning's not that good anymore. Like that's, and then, okay, the conversation's over. And granted, they have to have content and stuff like that, and this is part of my content, but I'm just more interested in why we're choosing to act like this is brand new. Like, that's the question that I have. I want to go to the people who have been talking about this on the sports platforms, on the internet, having the debate back and forth. And it's like, why are we talking about this again? Like, why are we talking about this again? Both subjects. Eli Manning's not that good, and Odell Beckham causes trouble. Whether you like it or not, no one cares. You have probably already stated whether you like it or not before, and you already stated whether you think Eli's washed up or not. He's not that much different than he was last year. And Odell is still doing weird shit like he did before. So either you agreed with that the first time or you didn't agree with it, and I can highly doubt that your opinion changed because nowadays, once you say something once, you're not allowed to ever change your mind anyway, so you might as well just stick with it and ride it into the fucking ground. And that's the way people feel. So I just think, it's kind of, I would like to know why we're having this conversation again because it seems pointless to me. And then we're not talking about Saquon Barkley, who's fucking amazing. The dude's fucking amazing. I mean, he is amazing. And there's no conversation. Like, there is, but it's overshadowed by this bullshit. And it's like, anytime you mention Saquon, then you got to talk about this bullshit. And it's like, no, I wish that guy was on the Packers. I really do because their running backs are okay, but that guy is fucking, like, he's great. And I would like to see him on the Packers because he can catch the ball and he'd give Rodgers a reliable third down option, for a little catch and run. And they could do some, well, they wouldn't because McCarthy is a, I don't want to talk about that, but he's, I don't know. I just think it's a worthless conversation to have, and I just wish they'd talk more about Saquon because I'm really impressed with that guy, and I think that's much more of an interesting story to document what he's doing rather than talk about stuff that's already happened before and everybody's expressed their opinion on it before, and now we have to rehash it again because it's somehow new. I don't understand. Going from one thing that's not new to another, the NBA season started technically tonight. The first game I think was actually last night, or maybe that was the last preseason game. I don't know. The Warriors played, but is the season already over? Because everybody seems to think it is. Like everywhere I hear, it's a Golden State Warriors, a Golden State Warriors, a Golden State Warriors, and they're really good. And they got the ring last year, and they haven't lost anybody other than Patrick McCaw, who's holding out, but he's not not a huge significant piece. He's good, but he's not that oh my God, Steph's holding out. Like that would be different. But everybody seems to think the Warriors are going to win. And I don't know. The Rockets looked decent against them last year. They looked, like they could beat them. And then Chris Paul got hurt. And I'm not saying they could or couldn't have, but I would like to see, I'd like this to play out a little bit. I think there's some teams that could challenge them. I think, they're all a year older. We don't know if anybody's going to get injured, to cry. I mean, that old Danny Green when they played the Bears, you want to crown their ass, then crown them. I'm not that angry about it, but I just think this whole, it kind of takes some of the excitement out of the season for me when everybody's like, oh yeah, the Warriors are probably going to win. I don't see the Warriors losing. And then there's the guys that say the Warriors are gonna lose, and they pick some random ass team, and they're like trying to drum up fucking excitement. It's like you don't even believe that. Like somebody told you to say that. Nobody in their right mind on any of these platforms, unless you're like a fan. Which if you're on social media and you're a fan, you're like, yeah, the Mavericks are gonna win. It's like no, they're not gonna win. But apparently, Luka Doncic looked pretty good, and so did DeAndre Ayton tonight. But these guys, I don't know. I don't know. Are you excited for the NBA season? Because I'm not. I mean, I am. I want to see what the Bucks do. I hope they win the East. I'm probably going to be disappointed because my it's a new coach. Bledsoe was hurt most of last year, and I don't know how he's going to fit in the system. I don't know what kind of system Budenholzer is going to have. I mean, is he going to do the same thing that he did in Atlanta? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I think in the East, they're probably one of the more talented teams. I know everybody's on the Celtics bandwagon, but I hate Kyrie Irving. I don't like him, and I just never have. I've always thought he had an attitude that was, I mean, to not want to play with LeBron, to be negative about that stuff. If any of that stuff that came out, that's just how he seemed. And to me, when I watched them play, and I like LeBron a lot, so him to be that negative towards LeBron, and maybe LeBron deserved it, I don't know, but I'm on LeBron's team in that situation, and you can be on Kyrie's team, that's fine. But for me, it just made me not like that guy. And Gordon Hayward's okay. I'm not really that high on him at the moment because of what I saw happen to his foot last year because I was watching that game. So I'm really going to be cautious. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are really good. I mean, I ain't going to say they aren't. I mean, Jason Tatum was number one in the country for a while when he was supposed to come out. And then Jaylen Brown was number one when they were in high school. So a lot of times when they're number one, barring some kind of injury situation, they're usually pretty good. And I don't. Terry Rozier's okay. He's kind of a like. I don't know. He's got such a problem. Like he was. The Bucks played them in the playoffs last year, and he went back and forth with Bledsoe, and they were just like pissed off at the world. And I don't like teams that have guys like I don't like the Warriors for the same reason because they're always mad. And it's like you get to play basketball. I granted I'm disrespected. It's a fuck Jesus Christ. Oh, it's my job. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't see. I see taking it seriously, but being that pissed off about that kind of stuff is just. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. But so I'm not exactly enamored with their team after the way that the Bucks series transpired against them, and the Raptors. I don't like what Kawhi did last year with the Spurs. I get there was some turmoil and maybe they did something wrong, but to hold out the whole year and say you're injured when, well, my team says I'm injured. Well, doctors say you aren't. Well, my team's doctor does. Okay, well, then go away. And he just didn't want to play in San Antonio anymore. It seems like to me like he just wanted to get out of there for some reason or another, and that's fine. Like you can want to get out of there. I'm not saying, Charles Barkley says San Antonio sucks all the time. I don't know if it does. I've never been there, but maybe Kawhi thought that too. And they got DeRozan back, and I really like DeMar DeRozan, but I don't really care about the West because until anybody other than the Rockets prove that they can push the Golden State Warriors, I'm not, I'm waiting for the Rockets to play the Warriors to see if they can win. Maybe Oklahoma City will do something with George, and I forgot they got Dennis Schroeder from the Atlanta Hawks, who's actually a pretty good little point guard. Like, I don't understand how the hell he's going to back up Westbrook unless they're going to play him together, but, that should be interesting. But I'm not super psyched on the Pacers. I like Miles Turner, but the rest of their team is meh. I'm trying to think who else does in the East. I don't like the Heat. Um, the Bulls are inconsequential. Knicks suck. Nets suck. I mean, they might be better this year, but last year, I mean, they were just horrible last year. So I don't even, I mean, there'll be a surprise team here or there. So I think the Bucks could win the East. I really do. I don't really see I don't see the Cavs doing much. I don't, So I'd like to see the Bucks do something, and I'm not saying they could win the championship. I'm not as foolish as all that with a new coach and new this and new that, and I don't. I still feel like they're a piece away. They need one other guy. Like Giannis and Chris Middleton and Bledsoe are good, but I don't know why it feels like you need 4 or 5 guys. And you need two knockout, you know, drop dead fucking players. They wanted Jimmy Butler. I can see why. I wouldn't give up Chris Middleton for him, but I wouldn't give up anything for him because I wouldn't take him because of his trouble making, you know. But as a player, would he help? Absolutely. Um, I just, I'd stay away from him because I'd be afraid how much trouble he'd cause because I just would, you know. And I don't know who the hell else is out there. You know, who are you going to get? You know, um, what team's going to completely fall apart? You know, Kemba Walker, does that help you? Well, no, because he's a point guard. Um, you know, you can't really get anybody from, you know, the really bad teams because there aren't any established guys on those teams. Well, what are you going to do? Trade for Hassan Whiteside? I mean, that wouldn't be. They don't really have a center. I mean, Thon Maker's not terrible. He's decent. John Henson doesn't really have much of an offensive game. He's defensively fairly efficient, but I just think that, you know, there's an ability for those guys to do something, but it's not exactly what I'm not confident in their ability to do something because I feel like they're missing a piece, and I have no idea where that piece would come from. You know, the biggest piece out there is Jimmy Butler, but I don't want anything to do with him. They could have got Kawhi, you know, and then Middleton could have played the 2, Kawhi could have played the 3, Giannis at the 4, Bledsoe at the 5, at the 1, and then, you know, Henson Maker at the 5. But I don't know. And I'm trying to think. I can't think of anybody that's a big name that's out there. You know, they're talking about Kyle Lowry might not want to be with the Raptors because of the fact that he was they traded his best friend who was DeRozan. Um, and maybe I'm missing somebody. That's possible. You know, the Knicks aren't really getting rid of their people, and the Nets aren't in sell mode anymore, and you know, you can't get anybody from the Sixers, and the Sixers are out there too, but they lost to the Celtics fairly convincingly, so they're not exactly the most most big team anymore. You know, like everybody's all excited. Um, I don't know. I just would like to see the Bucks get somebody else, some big name guy. Yes, granted, it would the only guy it would be Jimmy Butler, but that's the last guy I wanted to get. So I guess they're not going to get anybody. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just not excited for it because everybody keeps talking about the Warriors, and I don't know. I don't know. It's just something with the season starting tonight, I was just kind of wondering if it was just me that thought the season was over, or if anybody else felt like that. So one thing that's over that might already be over is the season, but one thing that's definitely over is Sears. For those of you who don't know, Sears went into bankruptcy, and granted that doesn't mean it's over. Granted it doesn't mean exactly anything yet because anything can happen. I mean, Toys R Us is apparently being revamped after it was supposedly going to close and everything else, and there's some revival there, which is great. But as of right now, Sears is going down the tubes and Kmart right along with it because they are merged together. It makes me sad. I posted about this on Twitter. I have no financial connection to it. I don't really have an emotional connection to it. I mean, I'm so sick of Walmart. I'm sick of fucking Amazon. I'm sick of everything else other than having, different stores to go to that had different prices, that had different materials. They had Craftsman tools. And, I fix some things. I'd be what you call a handyman. If it's a fairly simple problem and you have no ability to fix it yourself, you could call me and I'd be able to fix it. If you don't know if a wrench turns left or it turns right, you know what I mean? If that's the kind of thing you need, I can probably fix it. And some sort of complicated stuff with different, plumbing and electrical kind of things, I can figure that out just because I've done a little bit of work in those areas. But overall, I'm not I'm not a guy who needs tools every day. But my dad, fixed stuff, and he worked he did construction and built houses and stuff like that. And he's a general contractor, and he loved Craftsman tools. Loved him. He loved everything about Craftsman. Bought their lawnmowers. Loved Craftsman. Blah, 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 blah. Over and over again. Now they're at Lowe's now. And it's the new home of Craftsman. And they were sold to Lowe's and all that other stuff. And that's great. But it makes me sad because Sears was a nice store. They used to have it in the mall around here. And it was a nice store. It had nice stuff in it. I liked going there and looking at all the appliances. I mean, it's just stupid shit, that you do as a kid, but it seemed like a nice store. It seemed like it had, it always had good quality stuff. It seemed that way. I don't know. I wasn't a dutiful consumer at that point where I used it myself and I was banging the wrenches on stuff and, running the lawnmower and, using the refrigerator all the time. But that's just the way it seemed. It seemed like a nice store. And now it's probably going to be gone because they had a $143 million debt payment due on Monday and they couldn't afford it, so out they went. And I was reading this stuff before this afternoon when I should have been studying for my exam, but we won't talk about that. This Eddie Lampert is the guy, or Lambert, I don't remember. It's ESL. He's a hedge fund manager, and he's the CEO currently. And he owns the most stock and is also the largest debt holder in the company. And he put a lot of money behind it. And a lot of people say that he is a dumbass who ran the company in the ground. And talking about dumbasses, I say country instead of company. And there's other people who said that he's the reason it's still here altogether. I don't know what to believe. I mean, you'd have to look more at the financials and stuff like that. And, a lot of places have a certain type of way to feel about stuff nowadays. And, that's pretty prevalent and I'm not saying that, the media is bad. No, I'm just saying that impartiality is kind of gone in a lot of places now. And it's for good or for ill because there's unimpartial things that are fairly mainstream that attack the things that were impartial because they're like, oh, you lie. And it's like, no, we're just not, you have no, what is it? You have no backbone or you have no opinion or whatever. So, you don't say anything real, so you should shut up. So then they started saying stuff real. Well, then now they're just one-sided. So, you can't always believe everything that you read, but it seems like quite a few people believe that he didn't do the company any great service. And I don't know if he did or not. The one thing I do know is that when they merged the brands, he merged Kmart and Sears, and then he became CEO afterwards. And it was supposed to be a short-term measure. However, he just eventually just kept doing it. I think he's CEO up until now. I think he finally just stepped down when they went into bankruptcy. And one of his investors in his hedge fund said to him, man, you may know a lot about money, but you don't know anything about running a retail store. And some of the practices that he had that I read about, whether they're true or not, I don't know. But if, like he was, a lot of like retail people show up at the stores and all this other stuff, and he was promoting like Skype and whatever. He had good ideas, like he wanted to get on the e-commerce thing and kind of have like a some kind of data-driven sales thing with, like Amazon does, where they sell certain things, and if you're selling a lot of them, then you can lower the price a little bit. And they had a big boon at one point because a lot of people moving back to the Northwest, he sold a bunch of snowblowers based on that data online, and stuff like that. So he had some good ideas, but overall it didn't seem to be very effective. I don't know. I don't really know what's going on anymore. And it just makes me sad because that Sears blue logo, I like their carpeting in their store. I mean, stupid shit that nobody really fucking cares about. I mean, really doesn't care about. But it's one of those things, when Toys R Us went out of business, it's not important, in the grand scheme of things. Things come, things go. Kmart, is pretty much gone around by me. We had two within an hour drive of my house. Now I think the closest one's like 4 hours away. And I liked Kmart. There used to be one in the mall when I moved to where my mom lives. and it was in the mall, and it was a really good store, and my mom loves Kmart, and so that kind of got rubbed off on me, and then they went out of business, and my mom and I were there like every day for the last 2 weeks that fucking store was open. I got a bunch of Game Boy shit. Like, this tells you how long ago this was Game Boy Color. I got so much shit from there, and it was a great store. Like, I loved that store, and then it was gone, and I will always remember it leaving as a sad and good time. Like, when my girlfriend and I moved into my grandmother's house, we were living in an apartment beforehand, and I hated that apartment. The neighbor was terrible. He smoked weed constantly. I think he was a drug dealer. I don't know for a fact, but people were coming and going all hours of the night. It was weird. They left fucking doors open. It was unsafe. I was sick one time. I went to town. I went somewhere else to go to a mall to get her a birthday present, and I had a bad fever, and I was delirious, and it was bad. And I got home, and it was her birthday, so I had to go get it, and I went and did it, and I came home, and I fell asleep, and I woke up and got her birthday. I didn't go outside for 2 days after that, and I went downstairs, and we parked in this parking lot behind the building outside, and my car had been gone through. And so it wasn't like I hated that fucking apartment. I hated it. But the last day we were there, we had to get the carpets cleaned according to her lease. And the last day we were there, they were cleaning the carpets, and I was ready to cry. I was really sad, and I missed that apartment. As soon as that happened, I knew I was sad that we were leaving, and I don't miss that apartment in a lot of ways, but in certain ways I miss it. And I think about Kmart that way. Like, I love that last 2 weeks that it was there, because that was some of the I got the most amount of shit my mother ever bought me. I think was in that 2 weeks, because she was sad and I was sad, but we were getting great deals, and the Sears went out of business up here, and I didn't go because at this point now in my life, I'm too old to start going. I can't just brush those things off as easy as I used to. I wish I could. When I was a kid, you're dumb, you don't know any difference, but there's different writing on the wall when you go in there. I don't know if that makes sense to a lot of people, but it makes so much sense to me. Like, you go in there and there's a writing on the wall, but we just, when you're a kid, you can't read it yet. But when you're old enough, you're like, oh shit, you see what that fucking thing says. And it's really depressing. And I just, I don't know. So I don't know if you guys are, sad about that closing, or if you even care. I know they were more national brands. I mean, they were like I was reading this thing. They were like Amazon before Amazon, and I knew that. But then, like, other people are saying it, and I'm like, okay, so I'm not crazy, because, where I live now, you had to order shit from catalogs. There weren't a lot of stores, and so they were like the internet before the internet. The internet store before the internet, and then they're just gone. I mean, they I don't know. It didn't seem like a bad store. The guy put a lot of money into the pensions. And so that's to be commended. But God, I hope it stays. I really do. And I hope not only does it stay, I hope it has a revival enough that the stores that were gone come back. That's what I hope happens. I know it's a ridiculous idea, and I know it's nostalgia, and it's me trying to cling on to some fucking segment of my past that doesn't exist anymore, and that's me looking backwards. And it's really uncharacteristic for me. I mean, it really is. But I just, it makes me sad. It just makes me sad. And when I saw it, I was like, really? And I even posted it on Twitter, and no one probably cares. Although some people seem to agree with me, and I appreciated that, because it let me know that it wasn't just me that felt like this. One woman said I couldn't have said it better myself, which is really good, because the way I said it means, and I'm not anti-Walmart, I'm not anti-Amazon. I use both those things. And like I said, with the Walmart stuff, you can get used to anything. You can use to self-shoppers, or to self-checkouts. You can get used to ordering your stuff online and waiting however many days for it to fucking show up. And then, I mean, I ordered something, I think I ordered something and it didn't come right away. And they had a problem with the fucking shipping, and they didn't bother to tell me. And then it showed up 5 days later. I mean, this is just stupid. They got the shipping to the stores, except Like my grocery store doesn't have their truck comes in the day after their flyer goes out. How much fucking sense does that make? Now maybe it's just their produce truck that does, but their produce truck comes in the day after their flyer comes out. Why would that make sense? How would that make sense to you if you're a business? You'd think the day like their flyer comes out on or their flyer begins on Wednesday, like all the deals in the flyer begin on Wednesday. I don't know. A lot of places are probably paperless now, so you have no frame of reference. But we get this little paper that has the shopper, and it has the there's a flyer for all the different businesses that advertise still in there, and one of them is the grocery store. And the grocery store's flyer is it begins the day it begins, like the sales start is on a Wednesday. And every time I go in there and they don't have something, I'm like, you got any more of this? Oh, no, we got to wait till the truck comes in. When's the truck coming in? It comes in tomorrow. And I'm like, why the fuck would you have that scheduled that poorly? Or, okay, if the shipping schedule is that, then just move the fucking thing to fucking Friday or move it to Thursday, you know? I don't know. It just seems to me that it would make more sense to have the truck there so then, because a lot of the shopping that's done in the morning is by older people. So then you get rid of all the shit that's there. And then the younger people that come in after work, you can have all the new stuff for them. And granted, you're shortchanging the older people, but, then maybe the older people come in the afternoon too. So then you get a rush. I don't know. I just think it would make more sense. But that's way off topic. Way off topic. I hope Sears has a revival. And I hope that I just hope some of that stuff comes back because having an online marketplace is great. I mean, it's not bad, but this online stuff with ESPN Plus and subscribing and all this crap, it's not functional in all of the country. And you want to leave me out. I have money. I have spending power. I have all of these things. I have influence in a certain way, not in like a big swinging dick, billionaire kind of way, but I have influence because I will go places and tell people, don't ever go there. They're fucking jerk. I will do those things. And to be as short-sighted as to see me as inconsequential because, well, we might lose that segment of that population, but we will gain this much over here, and who cares about them? I think that's kind of a bullshit way to look at it. Now, I understand it's business, and business now is all about making profit on top of profit on top of profit. And whatever you got to do to make the profit rise, that's what you got to do. In the old days, when you farm, a lot of you understand that not all the time you're going to make a profit. Sometimes you're going to take a loss. You hope it's not a big loss, but sometimes you're going to take a loss. And we got so far away from that kind of, we get so far away from that kind of economy and that kind of idea that now all we think about is profit as far as big business goes. And they don't understand that, like farmers understand, sometimes you're not going to make money. There are ways to make sure that you don't lose your ass, and there are ways to break even. But sometimes you're not going to make a huge profit. And if you make any profit at all, you're doing good. And I think I think it's sad that Sears is gone now, and I get to sit here and I have to go to Walmart and buy their shitty tools and their shitty stuff, and I have to shop their workout department, which is by far one of the worst. Oh, well, go to Dick's or Dunham's or one of these other places. Oh yeah, they charged me 5 times as much as Sears did. Because that's the same equipment that somehow they got cheaper because they had it in more stores, so they bought it in a bigger quantity. And Dick's has less stores, and their stores are more expensive. I don't even know how the hell they charge that much because they got a shitload of stores. But it's just insane. But I suppose I should talk about something else because that was kind of a depressing way. And if I end the podcast on that, you're all gonna be like, "This dude is a fucking downer." Let's see, what can I talk about? Well, I suppose, Sears closing is necessarily not a good thing. But, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. I don't know what to talk about. I guess we're kind of trudging along here, like I said before. We're doing okay. If you listen and you like the podcast, I'd like to hear from you. I honestly would. Um, I don't think I don't think a lot of you listen the whole way through, so that's why I did this in the beginning too. And any of you who do listen the way through, I'm sorry for repeating myself. Um, but you know, I'd honestly like to hear from you guys. And I said this in the first podcast. It's presumptuous for me to think that anybody's going to listen to this, anybody's going to care, and anybody's going to reach out. But if you do, and you're interested, I'd definitely like to hear from you because I just like you know even if it's hey man, listened, it was sort of all right. I mean, don't be a dick, don't be a jerk. Just even if it's not your favorite thing, be like, it was okay. I'm probably not gonna listen again. And maybe I'll ask you some questions. If you don't want to hear, if you don't want to have a dialogue back and forth, or you ain't got time for that shit, I get it. Then probably don't send me a message because if you say, hey man, it's not my thing, and I'll just be like, why? And, I'll probably try to start a dialogue with you, not to convince you to come back, but to try to figure out, what about the podcast you didn't like, and if it's something I can change, maybe I could do it in the future. Because maybe if you're one guy and then I get a girl, a person, and I get like other people that say, yeah, dude, yeah, but I mean, I probably curse a lot, but that is how I talk. I don't ramp it up for the podcast. It's just something I do because, this is something I could talk about. Like words having power over people. There's really no word that has power over me. I mean, honestly, there isn't. And granted, I'm in a privileged situation in that way, I guess. But I just don't. There's not much you can say to get under my skin. I don't really care. I mean, I used to be fat, and that used to bother me so much, but I lost the weight. And so I don't really worry about that anymore. That was the one. That was the one when I was younger, and when I was still heavy, when I got out of high school and stuff, that bothered me. And it bothered me to my core because I didn't want to be fat. And it was one of those things I just couldn't figure out. And now I'm not fat, but I'm not as thin as I would like to be. And granted, how many people are going to be like, well, of course, nobody's as thin as they'd like to be. But the point being is that I would like to be. I mean, I've gained some extra weight that's not necessary because of bad habits that I have. Um, you know, I'm a sugar addict. I like, you bring me anything sweet, I'm probably going to eat it, even if I don't know you. Probably not if I don't know you because I don't trust anybody. So for me to eat something from you, I have to know you pretty well. But, I mean, the amount of candy I have in my house and cookies and just general ice cream crap, every fucking sugar thing you can put your finger on, I got it everywhere. And so in those ways, I don't understand why people let words bother them. And if I swear too much for you, I'm sorry. um, I'm sorry that my sensibilities aren't yours. I think, you can say, well, you swear and that reduces your point and all that. I don't really agree. um, because I think my point is clear whether I swear or not. I'm fairly good at getting my point across. And sometimes I swear for effect. Sometimes I swear because I'm frustrated and I generally don't know what to do. And, when I was younger, I was, yelled at every time I said a curse word. My dad swore like a sailor. So I I wanted to swear because I was frustrated. So then when I was frustrated, I swore. So then it became a habit. And, you can say, oh, that's a bad habit. I don't really see it as a bad habit because it's kind of like a pressure valve. And if I say that word, then it releases some of that pressure. And you might think that's ridiculous and, I'm justifying my behavior or whatever. And that's odd. That's up to you. You can feel whatever way you want about it. See, that's the difference. The way I feel about it is that, you're entitled to feel that the swearing is too much or whatever else. And a lot of people, are pretty, um, they're not tolerant of that because they're like, well, that's a bad word and you shouldn't say that. You know, I don't really see any word as a bad word. I think your opinion of the word is what makes it a bad word, and that's your opinion. And granted, you might be in the majority of that opinion, but if I don't really agree with that. And it's nothing against whatever, whatever sensibilities you have, or whatever, whatever connotations that word has. But it just seems to me that those words, if we removed that connotation and that feeling and all that, all the bullshit behind them, they wouldn't have that anymore. And granted, some words that's harder to do than others. And, there's reasons that they're there and they're horrible, and, people don't like them and they get upset and all that other stuff. And I get that. I mean, I'm not insensitive to it. I just think, to move it forward, to get past that point, you have to try. And I don't think a lot of people are willing to try because, like I talked about Giannis last week, the basketball player said he's under 23, and my idea with basketball players is that once they get to 25, your brain's fully formed at 24. So unless you're a really hard charging motherfucker who pushes through everything, you're not really going to get any better. You're kind of going to do what you do, and that's what you do, and that's okay. You're not in, you're in the majority there, but I see. I see that as kind of, it is lazy as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm not saying you're lazy because if you let words affect you, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, as a culture and as a people and as humanity, if we took if we allowed if the affected people were to not allow that to affect them anymore, then what power would that word hold? It would just be noise. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fairly gassy on this podcast. That's not, people are like, that's gross. Well, I didn't do it on purpose. I'm talking for a long time. I try to, burp off mic, and I'm trying to figure out how to turn off my mic. Shows you how well I am at podcasting. I don't even understand what this board, all the buttons on the board, and it's not a big board either. I mean, you see it in the picture on Instagram and on Twitter, so it's not like it's complicated, but I'm not the most adept at it yet, and kind of be honest with you, I'm a little lazy about it, so I could know more about it if I read the book, but I just ain't got that far. And, people are like, that's gross, he does it. I didn't do it on purpose. I'm not coming up to you and you're, I'm granted it's in your ears and you're working out or whatever, or you're sitting there, searching through YouTube or whatever, and then this guy's burping. I mean, that's not exactly pleasant, but it's not like, we're standing next to each other and I'm talking to you and then I just decide to turn to you and go bleh right in your face. I mean, granted, if I want to belch, trust me. There's a story that a friend of mine came over to my mom's house, and we went in the backyard after I helped my dad. Well, my mom paid my dad to put a deck on her house, and it was my idea because he was in between. He was starting his business and he needed some money, and I asked him if he'd do it, and he wanted to get paid, so he did it. And my friend wanted to see it, so we came around the backyard, and we were walking and talking, and I think I had a soda or something, and out it came, and it was it's like a roar. I always wanted to be a lion, so when I guess my belching is my roar. And there was a lady that lived up the block from me and around the corner, and she had this little tiny fucking fluffy dog, and I came around the corner and I let that sucker fly, and both her and the dog looked like, oh my god, what was that? And they both stopped in their tracks, and he looks at me and he goes, you're something else. And I mean, I could do that. I don't do that because, so I just think, I think these words and the stuff that, that has power over us, I just wonder what it'd be like if they didn't, if we could release them, if we could release ourselves from their hold, And I don't know how to do that. I have no idea because I'm not really, there's no words you can, like I said, other than when I was fat. And if I get fat again and you call me fat, I'll probably be like, at this point, I'll probably be like, yeah, who cares? I was skinny. I can do it again. Fuck you. That kind of deal. And so if my swearing is too much for you, I apologize. When we were on iTunes and I saw the E next to it, I kind of chuckled because I was like, yeah, that's probably. And then there's the parental advisory warning in the corner. And you know what? I'll be honest. I was kind of happy about that. I don't know why. It just tickled me in a funny way. So yeah, I just, I don't know if that, holds on to you or not, and I hope it doesn't, and I hope it doesn't hold you back from listening to the podcast. And I tweeted at Bill Burr because his podcast, it really impacts mine. There's quite a few podcasts that I was influenced by. Um, Mark Maron was one of them because he's one of the guys that started it, and I've been listening to him probably the longest. Joe Rogan and some of his topics, like I mean, I mentioned his podcast a lot. The sport one would be Tony Kornheiser because I listen to that quite a bit. I listen to Dan Le Batard's radio show on TV too, but I don't really listen to that as a podcast. I listen to their morning hour, but that's just ridiculous now, so it's not as informative. Sometimes it is, like on Mondays after football and stuff. But and then Bill Burr's podcast I really enjoy. It was kind of like the soundtrack that was in my head, is the way that I looked at it. And he was kind of the voice in my head. And I think somebody sent an email into him one time that said that, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, if that's the case, you need help." And I just chuckled because I was like, "That's kind of how I feel." And then the most recent one that started was Thought Spiral with Andy Kindler and J. Elvis Weinstein, and they did their podcast, and I decided, I like their podcast. It's kind of just meanders all over the place and they thought spiral. And that's kind of what I do. I do it like if Bill Burr was thought spiraling, is kind of how I feel about it. And, I try to stay on topic. I try to have things to talk about. But, how many times have I been talking and getting off on giant tangents like right now? I really had nothing to say. I just wanted to not leave on such a depressing note as the Sears conversation. And I started talking about words, and then now I'm talking about my influences in my podcast. And I say all that to say because, like, Bill Burr swears constantly in his podcast, and he doesn't really mind it, and he swears in his comedy too, and it doesn't bother me. So I was listening to some of his podcasts and some of his, like, pauses and the way that he speaks, and, he says, and stuff like that. I do some of the same things. And then, with Thought Spiral and those two guys, they kind of go back and forth on each other. So it kind of showed me that the unstructured, kind of all over the place kind of thing, because Bill does that to a degree. But I was like, but he's the only one that I really see that does that. And, like Joe has people come in and they have a certain topic they want to talk about. And granted, it's not like pre-planned or anything, but they have a topic. And Mark Maron interviews people. And then the sports ones, the podcast with Tony Kornheiser and Dan Le Batard's radio show, well, they're not exactly, like, Tony's podcast is more structured than the radio show of Dan's, but they have general ideas of what they're doing. And so then those two guys kind of just going back and forth and batting the ball back and forth, like Pong or a couple of cats or something. It's gotten better. At first it was way all over the place, but it's gotten better now. They kind of have a structure and stuff. And I hope that at certain points, I think they're on episode, the test show 76 will be on Monday after this one comes out of mine. And they, they, they've gotten better structure. So I'm hoping, like them and like most of the people that I've listened to, that I can get to a point where my structure is a lot better. And, I think I'm doing better. I think I'm getting more comfortable, and I don't really write, like, I write down topics, like what I want to talk about, but I don't really write it out or any of that. And it's just kind of off the top of my head, and it's whatever's rolling around in there. So I have to, I just sit down and start talking. So I hope that gives you a little more insight into my podcast and stuff like that. And I hope my swearing's not too much for you and stuff, and I don't want you guys to be put off because I swear. I don't do it to be a malicious dick. I just do it because that's how I talk. I mean, if you met me in person and you actually met the real me, that's how I would be. I can be a different person based on the situation, but because, I can't talk like that in front of certain people. They got, they faint, like in the Three Stooges. And so I can't do that with certain people, and I know that, so I basically am quiet. I don't say nothing in them situations, And so I think that's it for episode 4. And like I said, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, email, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, The Enlightened Misanthrope. Look for it. Hit me up. Let me know what you think about the podcast. Let me know what you think about the topics. Let me know what you think about the episodes. Let me know what you think about my podcast. Period. And like I said, don't be a dick, because I just don't have the energy for it, and I'm not going to even entertain it. So you're wasting your time and you're wasting mine. And like I said, I basically rambled on for the last however many minutes because I did not want to end on that depressing ass Sears note. And I'm not going to bring it up again because it's just going to do the same thing and I'm going to have to talk some more. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and episode 5 will be coming out next week, and I hope you all have a good week.